20 miles offshore, in the dead of night, a Coast Guard patrol picked up something that should never have been there. The seismographs went haywire. Tremors rolled across the ocean floor like an earthquake, except this was no earthquake. The sonar sweep told an even stranger story. Something massive, something impossibly heavy, had just crashed down onto the seabed. And judging by the readings, it hadn't been sitting there for days or weeks. It had gone down only hours before. Whoever dropped it never expected anyone to find it. They were wrong. The case landed on the desk of Captain Izzy Barkley, and within hours her team was cutting through open water toward the buoy registering the strongest tremors. Izzy was the kind of lead researcher who never sent anyone where she wouldn't go herself. So the moment they arrived over the coordinates, she zipped up her suit, checked her gear, and dropped into the dark blue alone. She didn't stay down long. Within minutes, she surfaced shouting, waving her arms. Resting on the ocean floor far below them was an enormous shipping container, settled into the sand like it had always been there. It was far too heavy for any diver on this earth to move by hand. So Izzy turned to the ship's secret weapon, a deep-sea diving robot with arms strong enough to bend steel. Their research vessel carried some of the most advanced equipment in the entire fleet, and Izzy knew every switch and joystick on it. As the robot descended into the murk, she took the controls herself. The water was calm, the visibility was perfect. Finding the container was easy. Lifting it was anything but. The machine's mechanical claws clamped down and locked. The ship's crane groaned to life and began to pull. This crane had hoisted wreckage, machinery, and cargo far heavier than any ordinary container. And yet the ship pitched hard, stuttering against the weight, seawater spilling over the rails as the whole vessel leaned into the fight. The crew grabbed railings. The engine howled. For one terrifying moment, it genuinely felt like the ocean itself had grabbed this thing and was refusing to give it back. "What on earth is inside there?" Izzy muttered. Finally, with one last screech of straining metal, the container broke the surface, streaming water and sand, and slammed down onto the deck. The crew swarmed it instantly. Everyone was asking the exact same questions. Where did it come from? Who lost it? And why did a basic shipping container weigh like it was packed with concrete? Bolt cutters chewed through the locks. The doors swung wide, and Izzy Barkley froze where she stood, because inside that container was what looked like a home. Not storage, not cargo, a home. Furniture stood neatly arranged and bolted in place. Shelves were stocked. There was a small kitchen area, a closet full of clothing, personal belongings tucked carefully into every corner. Whoever lived inside this box had clearly meant to stay there for a very, very long time. Then came the detail that changed everything. Scattered among the belongings were family photographs, smiling faces, a man with his arm around his wife, children pressed close, ordinary, happy moments captured in a place that shouldn't have existed at all. This container hadn't carried goods, it had carried lives. The deeper they searched, the more haunting the picture became. Every object had been arranged with love, the same way anyone might arrange their own living room. This was somebody's answer to impossible circumstances, a desperate attempt to build something normal inside a steel box. The team kept circling the same unanswerable questions. Who were these people? What situation could possibly drive a family to live at the bottom of the sea? And now the most chilling question of all, where were they? Then, buried beneath a pile of loose papers, a crew member found a small plastic bag. Inside was a voice recorder, still working. What came out of that tiny speaker would stay with every person in that room for the rest of their lives. It was a first-person account, recorded in secret, whispered into the dark. The voice belonged to the man in the photographs. His name was Ahmed Osman, and the story he told turned a bizarre discovery into a full-blown race against time. Ahmed spoke fast and low, careful with every word, like he was terrified of being overheard. He said he and his family were trapped aboard a vessel called the Ever Cargo Voyager. He described how they had slipped away from their quarters and hidden themselves inside this container, praying it would keep them out of reach of certain authorities he refused to name. His voice shook as he begged for help. This wasn't a message in a bottle. It was a lifeline thrown into the ocean from a man who had run out of every other option. Listening to it, the entire crew went silent. Ahmed Osman wasn't a face in a photograph anymore. He was a father, a husband, a man terrified for the people he loved most. And that raised three burning questions. Which authorities was he hiding from? What in the world was truly happening aboard the ever-cargo Voyager? And was his family still out there right now, at this very minute, waiting, hoping that anyone would hear this message? Then the recording cut off mid-sentence. Dead silence. Izzy stood there, gripping the recorder, her mind racing, and suddenly she remembered something. After months of tracking ships through these waters, one vessel had always bothered her. It docked at strange hours, sat unusually far offshore, behaved exactly like a ship with something to hide. She pulled the logs and her heart dropped. The ever-cargo Voyager was close. Closer than anyone could have imagined. She briefed her crew in minutes. The report went straight to the Coast Guard and the police. And not long after, their vessel pulled within sight of a hulking cargo ship drifting 20 kilometers from shore, silent as a ghost. They kept themselves hidden while Izzy played the recording for the authorities. It took exactly one listen. Nobody needed convincing. Everyone understood the same thing at the same moment. There were lives on the line. Permission came through, and moments later, a ladder clanged down the Voyager's hull. But before Izzy climbed aboard, the escort beside her muttered the words that would define the next 60 minutes. "You have 1 hour." From the instant her boots touched that deck, everything felt wrong. The crew moved too fast and smiled too little. Eyes darted from corner to corner. Whole conversations died the second she walked past. The captain of the Voyager, a broad, heavy man with a stone-cold stare, granted them access with a reluctance that hung in the air like smoke. He offered nothing, no help, no answers. He just stood there and watched them work. So the team split in two and swept the ship. One group took the cargo hold, the other took the crew quarters. And they found nothing. Nothing and something at the same time, because the emptiness itself felt staged. The hold was suspiciously bare with only a few scattered containers. The quarters were spotless, beds made, lockers shut tight, not a single personal item left in sight. No ship at sea is ever that clean, unless somebody wanted it that way. They searched every corridor, every bay, every shadow. No Ahmed Osman, no family. No sign that anyone had ever lived aboard this ship besides the crew. The clock kept bleeding minutes. Whoever ran this vessel had been given 30 minutes of warning, and clearly they had used every single second of it. With time nearly gone, Izzy did something that had absolutely no procedure behind it. Standing between the rows of stacked containers, she threw caution to the wind and called out at the top of her lungs. Ahmed Osman, for a moment, nothing, then a sound, a metallic click. And right there in front of her, a container door cracked open from the inside. Faces emerged from the darkness, blinking against the daylight. More than one family. The container was furnished with bunks and blankets, and the same heartbreaking neatness as the one pulled from the sea. A man stepped out in front of the others, chin up, fear and defiance, both written across his face. "Who are you?" he demanded. Izzy knew him instantly. It was the man from the photographs. She told him everything, how his container had risen from the ocean floor, how his message had been found against every odd, and as she held up the little recorder, Ahmed's hardened expression shattered into pure disbelief. "I can't believe it. I threw that hope into the sea, and you actually caught it." Then Ahmed told them the full truth, and it was worse than anyone had imagined. He and the others had paid for passage to a safe country, sold a dream of protection and new beginnings, but the price kept rising long after they stepped aboard. Passage became labor. 1-year contracts that were quietly extended over and over, no matter what anyone had originally agreed to. Families lived and worked inside those containers like prisoners who had never once seen the inside of a courtroom. "I've been on this ship for 2 years, Ahmed said quietly, and some of these people have been here far longer. When he finally tried to organize a rebellion, the crew's response was swift and vicious. They took the one thing he loved most, the container home where his family ate and slept, and hurled it into the ocean as a warning to everyone else. They destroyed my home right in front of me," he sighed. "But before they could, I hid that message inside. I prayed someone would find it. That prayer had just been answered." Izzy relayed everything straight to the waiting officers. Ahmed gave names, roles, schedules, every detail he had memorized over 2 long years. The raid was planned in minutes and executed flawlessly. Officers hit the ship like a wave. The crew members found themselves in handcuffs before they even understood what was happening, and the Coast Guard took complete command of the ever-cargo Voyager. Container by container, door after door, the hidden families came out into the sunlight. Some cried, some laughed. Some simply stood there, breathing the open air, like they had forgotten what freedom felt like. The ship was brought into the nearest port, where an emergency shelter was already being raised with food, doctors, and warm beds for every single person who had been trapped aboard. The story exploded across the country overnight. News crews flooded the port, headlines ran for days, and Izzy followed every single update until the city formally took over the care of the victims. Only then did she finally allow herself to head home, exhausted, relieved, and quietly proud that one small recording, one sunken container, and a team that refused to walk away had rewritten the ending for so many lives. And just think about it, it all started with a tremor on the ocean floor and a container that refused to be lifted. So now I want to hear from you. If you had been standing on that deck when the doors swung open, what would you have done? And have you ever heard of anything like this? A sunken container hiding a story like Ahmed's? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because your perspective might be the one that adds a whole new layer to this mystery. Thank you for staying with this story all the way to the very end. Your time and your voice mean everything here.